All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Stephen Schroeder, and this is Sylvia Haas.
Hello, good morning.
Both of us are developers at Wolfram working on new tools for educators. And in our talk today, we'll be giving you an introduction and overview of Q&A form notebooks, how question objects are used to create questions, and I'll also give you a live demo of the overall workflow that will be soon available in version 13. So Q&A form notebooks allow educators to easily create coursework, and it can give you tools for automated assessment and access from anywhere for students. It will be, as I mentioned, available in version 13 under File, the File New menu. So currently there is form notebook authoring, and in 13 there will be another option here that says Q&A form notebook or something similar. So when you click that button, an authoring notebook will appear, and that is where you can add content to a quiz, lecture, test, or homework notebook. Adding questions in Q&A form notebook uses question object, which is also new to version 13. So I'm going to give a quick little explanation of question object and assessment function here, just so it makes sense when I give the little live demo of Q&A form notebooks. But Sylvia will go more into depth of both of these during her part. So form notebook is similar to form object, which is the existing way in Wolfram language to prompt users for responses. However, question object has a couple extra features like extended question types, in-notebook markup of responses, and automatic grading with assessment function. So assessment function is what checks the responses that students or whoever is taking the Q&A form notebook enters and compares that response to the correct answer. For example, answers can be given in code, and assessment function will determine if the written code is equivalent to the correct answer. And again, Sylvia will go way more into detail with that. But now that you have the basic idea, I'll explain how to build a Q&A form notebook. So the first part about making a Q&A form notebook is the authoring notebook. And this is where you actually create your quiz, lecture, test. And this is where you include all the informational material using anything that you normally do in a Wolfram notebook. You can include images, videos, interactive demonstrations, and they can be included alongside those automatically graded questions. So using the settings menu, which is right here, you can choose whether you want questions to be graded from within the notebook, or if you want the responses to be recorded and graded in Wolfram Cloud. Typically, it would be fine for questions to be graded within the notebook for a lecture or some other non-graded material. But for quizzes or tests, you would most likely choose that you want the questions to be graded in the cloud, which allows the educator to securely access student responses and make sure that none of the answer is within the notebook. It's all being done remotely. So the generate button in the authoring notebook opens an index, which looks something like this. It'll probably look a little bit different once it's actually out, but the index notebook informs the author how to distribute their coursework, access grades, modify permissions, basically anything you would want to do with the responses recorded by students or changing anything about the quiz. So students can access the lecture, test, or quiz on Wolfram Cloud using the URL, or the educator can share the notebook itself by downloading the notebook, the quiz notebook, and students can complete it on desktop. So now I will do a little demo here. So here is the Q&A form notebook. And obviously, again, this is the authoring notebook. So I've entered a title here for the quiz and included my image and added a couple problems already. And so the code cell here shows what the actual question object code is. And when you click preview, it'll show up what it's going to look like after you click generate in the user notebook. So that would be the quiz that I'm trying to make. And you can, in preview mode, you can also check this here. So we can try to see if the answer we're looking is correct. Something's wrong there. Oh, I think it's because there's a funny little, let's try it again and see what we get. Aha, we found something wrong. That's all right. Bug. But I will try adding another question just to show kind of what we would do. So I'm going to add another problem. And let's see, I want a short answer. And let's make my answer text be, what year was the first commercial flight? And I think it was 1952. And we'll try previewing it and see if it works. Ta-da, it works. And if we enter something else, we should get something wrong. So awesome. This quiz looks good to me, so I'm ready to share. So I'll click generate. And it should open up this index. So like I said, here in the index, you can download the generated notebook, which I'll show in a second. You can get to its URL, or you can actually download back this notebook, which was used to create it. And I'll look at the quiz notebook now. So this would be as if I had clicked download in the quiz notebook, or in the index notebook, sorry. And here we are. Hopefully everyone can see that. So this is what we could save this, we could pass it around to students. We could pass the link to them and have them answer it there. And you can answer any of the questions you like. You can do whatever you want. We can try doing this. Cool. Awesome. And I have selected in the authoring notebook for these questions to be graded individually. And so each question has a little submit button, but you can also choose for the questions to be graded as a group. So these wouldn't have the submit button, and there would just be one submit button at the top that you would press. And then after that is pressed, then all of these would be submitted, and you would get, they would be graded. So they would have little check marks beside them, and you would get a little banner at the top showing exactly the overall score for the quiz. All right, so I'll go back here. So in summary, Q&A form notebook is a new and powerful tool for educators. It lets you use Wolfram language in a course and includes easy tools for assessment of students' learning goals. Distribution is easy, and so is accessing the content on Wolfram Cloud or desktop. Now, Sylvia will go more into depth into some of the features of question object and how assessment works.
All right, so Stephen introduced me a little bit. My name's Sylvia, and he's sort of been working on the front end of this, and I've been working on the back end. So I've done stuff for question object and assessment function and question interface, which are either new or improved in 13. So let's start with question object. So if you're not familiar with it, it's what represents a question, and it can be customized using question interface and assessment function. So we can scroll through a couple of these. Question interface is going to be what controls what the question looks like. And there are a bunch of different types, and we keep coming up with new ones as Q&A form notebooks grow. So a couple ones we have here is just like a little checkbox. We have multiple choice where you can just select one option. We have a little like scrolling slider. And like these little Likert grids, we can rank things or have multiple choice questions all in one. And you can sort of see here how they're formatted using question interface. You'll put in like the type, and then using this association, you can edit it to be customized for your questions. We have the short answer one, which we saw in Stephen's presentation, where you can, I'm going to type in my name, sorry, Stephen. You can choose from a little color picker, and there will be more coming. And if you look on the doc page, there should be more on there as well. So while those are very pretty, they don't really do that much, but the excitement comes when you add in assessment function. So assessment functions are the automated grading tools. They have options that include partial credit, you can have explanations, tolerance, you can have custom scoring. You can really do quite a lot with it. And what I find really cool is that question interface can be inferred from the assessment function. So you don't always have to type out a super long, all your choices and categories. It can guess based on what the assessment function looks like. So let's just look at like a really basic example. This one is just a little pattern matching one. And it gives you a text field that is only expecting numbers. So if we'll give it a 2, it'll be happy with us. But if we give it a 5, it's angry. You can also do stuff with entities and other parts of the Wolfram language where you can have these sort of complex things, but write them out with pretty shorthand. So we can have something, or if we don't know how to spell, doesn't like it. And you can do this, doesn't have to be the name, it could be any part of this entity. But I don't know anything more about the noble gases other than the names, so we'll stick with that. So this one, I've made it so it's a little more randomized. It would only be randomized the one time, so it wouldn't be unique to each student. I saw that Jason asked a question about that. But this one, every time you would click the generate button, it would make a new question. And we have something in the works that would generate for each student, but that's not available yet in 13. But this one is going to make a multiple choice question with a random planet, and it gives you all the options. And you can select your favorite planet. We also have built-in for tolerance, right? You don't want them to always have to answer the exact answer. Sometimes that's just too much to ask of students or is impossible based on the type of question that it is. So if we have this little pi example, if you gave like 3.2, you would be incorrect. But if you gave 3.15, say, it's still okay because they were close enough. Other ones that work really well with tolerance are the color picker ones, because colors are hard to guess exactly. So I've generated one with a random Pokemon, converted that image to grayscale, and then for my assessment function, I've chosen the dominant colors of that image and given it a little bit of a tolerance so that I don't have to know it exactly. And I'm pretty sure I know this one. I had to generate a lot of these, but I think this one's a yellow. So I really hope that's true. No, I was so confident. Okay, it was just a little off. Okay. So you can create fun ones with these images and using like built-in Wolfram functions to make sort of complicated math and image things look really short and you don't have to type too much. So kind of going along with tolerance is partial credit. So students don't have to always get everything 100% right. So for this one, it has 2 correct answers and 1 that's wrong. So, right, if we select the wrong whale, there are no purple whales. But if we select both of these, they're correct. And how I have it set up right now, if I get 1 that's wrong, my ultimate score would show that I got 1 point here, but overall I got the question wrong. So in a Q&A form notebook, it would show my score correctly, but these are just giving us true or false feedback. So it'd still say wrong. But right, all of these are really made to thrive in the Q&A form notebook. So you're gonna get the most out of them if you use them there. And so for my last example that I have, I think this is one of the most exciting parts coming to 13 for assessment function is the code equivalence. So I've taken an example from the Wolfram challenges, which is the FizzBuzz one, and there are a bunch of different ways to solve it. So for my assessment function, I have chosen 1. And so that I don't have to type it all out, I'm going to copy my other one in. But we're looking for, given a list of integers from 1 to 100, write a function that replaces multiples of 3 with fizz, multiples of 5 with buzz, and multiples of both 3 and 5 with FizzBuzz, and leaves other numbers fixed. So if we place, I'm going to write out some code here. We can copy it down here so you can see it better. This code, we've got a smart Alex student who wrote it shorter than our original answer. But even though it looks different, it should still compute to correct, even though it doesn't look exactly like what we had initially thought the solution would look like. So we should be able to run both of these, and you can see that they compute to the same thing. And so you can have coding questions built into your quizzes. So that's sort of what's new with question object and assessment function. So unless Stephen has anything else he wants to add, I think we can answer some questions.
Yeah, we can open it up to some questions. So Jason asked if there is support for question pools so that each quiz is different. You kind of answered that. Yeah, that's a feature that will hopefully be coming with question generator.
Yes.
Can responses be saved to a log file or CSV file in the cloud? Do you want to answer that, Sylvia?
So right now, they're saved to the cloud for each individual student, and we're having right, if you saw in the index file, there is, maybe it's not on there yet, there will be a function repository function that is like retrieve results, and it pulls the assessments, and you can pull them out as for the individual student or the whole class. And if you don't want them saved to the cloud, you can actually save them to data bin as well. So that is more convenient for you.
Sweet. Yeah, and it was on there, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah. Will we be sharing the notebook? I think what we'll do is we'll share the lecture notebook, but there's no guarantee that everything will actually run for you.
It's all very new.
Yeah. Our multiple choice with multiple answers, choose all the correct statements supported.
Yes.
Yeah, so that would be the choose multiple question type.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah, so instead of it being like radio buttons, it would be check the equivalent of checkbox bar in question object.
So that has its own question type.
Yeah, all the interfaces for question interface are intentionally named something else than what they are in normal Wolfram language.
Hopefully in more colloquial teacher words.
Yeah. Yeah, it's less about coding and more about education. Does the question framework play along well with the API function? That's a good question. And I can't say that I have tested that. And so we will, I think we would have to go back to be able to answer that. I don't know if you have an answer for that, Sylvia.
I don't know anything about custom UIs.
Yeah, you can create a custom UI such as a website. Yeah, I'm not quite sure, Christian. I think we would have to talk later to answer for sure. So adaptive notebooks is the next question.
So that is, I think that is meant to go along with question generate. So the two sides of question generate is one that it would generate a new question for every student. And the other one is that it would could generate questions based on answers of previous questions. So that is coming in the works.
Yeah, so we've had the idea of the quiz notebook, essentially more questions open underneath questions that are already there, depending on what has been answered already. Or we've also considered having the quiz notebook have like pages where you can go to the next page, and those next pages would be generated based on previous responses. Play the Pokemon color question game against our AI.
I would not do well in that one.
Can you specify the number of tries allowed?
Yes. We call that submission count. So if you look on the doc page, for both cloud and in notebook, you can specify, but if it's in the notebook,
there's no guarantee that it's actually been that amount. If you have a crafty student, they can open up the, the cell expression and change it. But if it's recorded in cloud, then no matter what they do, the cloud object is yours. So true, false is a checkbox. No difference between false and unanswered. That is feedback that we have gotten. So I think we are considering changing the true false question type specifically. Yes, we will upload the presentation notebook.
So we are not making an LMS, or we are trying not to. So the course management stuff is still someone else's job for now.
Yeah, not quite there. It's intended to be a extremely useful tool.
Yes, and to plug in well with LMSs.
Exactly. Yeah. Plug in with them, not necessarily be them. Are there support for multiple answers from input fields that are unordered? For example, find the roots of a polynomial.
So unordered list is an option for assessment function. Right, just like code equivalence, you would just say unordered list for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the front end is still in the works for that one.
Yeah, there's a lot of quite cool things that you can do with assessment function and all kinds of custom ways you can assess things. Right, so the next question is about treating math expressions as equivalent or not.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I'm gonna make a note of that.
Yeah, I think we will definitely make a note of that. I think it's something that has been brought up before, but isn't currently like an option for question object as far as I know.
You might be able to, yeah, with more coding, you can definitely accomplish it with the system we have right now, but there's not a simplified version. Yeah, and Cassidy says that Wolfram U will soon be using this, hopefully for their testing. So it'll be a cool application of that that
Definitely.
you can go play around with.
Okay, we may be running pretty close to time, but if you do have further questions, or sorry, if the attendees do have further questions for you or Stephen, what's the best way to reach you?
I will put my email in the chat.
Yeah, I'll do the same.
Awesome. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and close things up here. If you want to contact Sylvia or Stephen, their information will be in the chat field of their Pathable page. And yeah, thank you everybody for coming and thank you for presenting.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks. Yep.